All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are live for day number 1 of our EMS Leadership Recruitment Challenge. Lisa, great to be with you.
Great to see you too. I'm so excited. This is our first challenge, and we have been working on it. And we're so excited to share what we've come up with to help people get everything they need over the next 5 days to be able to create an effective recruitment plan. Like, how cool is that? That in 5 days, you're going to have everything you need to create an effective recruitment plan.
And
I'm
we're going
proud
to be
of us.
going right, and we're going to be going live 30 minutes each day over the next 5 days. And we've been planning out different milestone topics to move people forward. Lisa, we've gotten a bunch of emails from folks that some people sound frustrated, what they've been frustrated and struggled with. So we really have an understanding of what the folks in this group are dealing with, and we've really tailored this material to address that. So if you
Yeah.
can hear us, audio sounds good, type in the comments, okay. Type in the comments where you're joining in from. And again, we've got the private Facebook group, and we have the EMS Leadership Network group. So we've got 2 separate groups. Some people aren't on Facebook, so you've got an opportunity to be in either one of those groups. And I'm going to work on sharing your slides.
All right, and I'm just going to say every day of the challenge, at the end, we will be giving you an assignment, just one task to do. Nothing crazy, nothing, that's going to take a whole lot of time. But in order for this to be effective, it requires that you participate by each night or each whatever time you're joining. I keep forgetting we have people all over the world. Whatever time it is in your world, you're going to have an assignment. And it's going to be one step in the process of creating your recruitment plan. So, just so you know, be prepared about that. For anybody who doesn't know us, I'm Lisa, that's Robbie, and we are co founders of the EMS Leadership Academy. We've been working together for 13 or 14 years, but we've actually established the Leadership Academy about 10 years ago. And since then, we've been doing a lot of live trainings. And over the last couple of years, we've been putting more and more of our work online. Many of you know us from the online, the summits, the EMS Leadership Summits that we've done 3 in a row every year, having thousands of people from around the world and speakers from all over the world participate in this conversation for how do we enhance EMS leadership worldwide. So we really want to welcome you to our very, very first challenge. And again, the intention here is for you to have everything you need in order to have an effective recruitment plan. And if it's okay with you, Robbie, I'm just going to go ahead and just give people the highlights of each day. Um, you're muted.
Great. And we've got Rick from Rick Bruce, Eastern Pennsylvania. Rick, great to see you. We've got Sean here from California on the West Coast. We've got Jamie joining in from New York. So, folks, again, you could drop your name and where you're from in the chat. And it's great to be here with you. And Lisa, if you want to give people an overview of the next 5 days.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and each one is a nugget. Okay. So we're doing 30 minutes for 5 days. And the first one tonight, we're going to be talking about what we call membership math. And this applies to both volunteer and paid organizations. And it's a overview of an effective recruitment plan. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about messaging matters. And that's everything that you need to know, not everything, but a lot of what you need to know around your messaging and what you're recruiting people into. Then we're going to talk about the half-life of enthusiasm and the importance of going from interest to selection. And that'll make sense in just a few minutes. Day 4, we're going to be talking about the first 90 days. Retention, we say retention starts, we actually think it starts from when you're messaging about it. But for this challenge, we're going to be talking about it from application. Like you work on retention right from the get-go. And then we're going to dive a little more deeply into what we call our formula for successful recruitment and retention. And again, every day you're going to have something to do, a homework assignment, if you will, hence the chalkboard to bring everybody back to what it's like to have homework assignments. So we wanted to introduce you to our formula. This will be discussed in much more detail on day 5, but we would be remiss if we just started talking about recruitment, right, Robbie, and not talking
Absolutely.
about our fundamental core belief around the issue of retention and recruitment. And the number one thing that you need to do to have successful recruitment is create an organization that's worthy of highly engaged members. And we call it a magnetic organizational culture. So, what is the culture that you are recruiting people into? That is what will have you be successful. So, if you're creating an organization worthy of highly engaged members, that's distinct from finding the quote unquote right people, right? We hear people say all the time that people need recruitment, and yes, that's what we're going to talk about over the next 5 days. But we have to show people how to maximize the benefits of your efforts. Otherwise, you're just spitting in the wind.
Real. And Lisa, I think it's people are always saying, well, recruitment and retention is the what we need. We need recruitment and retention. And the meaning they make out of it is, oh, I just need to recruit more people. They forget about the retention aspect of the formula. All of our work, a lot of our work is usually focused around the first 2 parts, right? We want you to be most efficient with your recruitment strategies so it doesn't feel like a burden. Imagine if you can get the most power out of the last step, recruitment, because you began to lower your turnover rates and people wanted to be part of an organization and a winning team. So we're going to talk about messaging tomorrow, and we're going to dive deeper into this formula of how to be much more efficient and how to really make your time more effective in your recruitment strategies.
And I'll just say one last thing about this, which is a lot of times people see the organizational culture and it feels like too big an elephant, right? They can't deal with it. And the truth is their numbers are low now, right? So they can't transform the whole culture. And that's why we really wanted to do this challenge, was to give people enough of this so that you can be more successful with your recruitment. But this is like, we don't want to put a band-aid on a hemorrhage, right? We have to remember that yes, you want to bring people in, but even how you bring them in, how you recruit people right now needs to coincide with transforming your organization. You can do both those things at the same time. So let's dive into the
Absolutely. We've got Dan from Williamson County in Georgetown, Texas, Williamson County.
Hey,
EMS.
Dan.
We've got Robin from Pittsburgh, PA. Welcome, Robin. So folks, is this sounding good? Is this landing for folks? Just put yes in the comments if you're tracking with us, if this sounds like what you signed up for. And we are going to dive right in. So this slide here, I when I saw some of these numbers around what are the costs of turnover, got a lot of yeses in the chat. Great to hear. I've done studies before for organizations to really look at their turnover numbers. In some cases, I've done studies for larger organizations that was costing them over $1 million a year in lost employees, and their management and their staff were getting so burned out because all they were doing was focusing on trying to fill the gaps, fill the holes, fill the schedule, and they couldn't focus their attention on anything else. So if you look at this this image here, the industry standard is about 16% of an annual salary can be attributed towards direct costs of turnover. Now, that number we know from the AAA 2021 in Newton 360 Ambulance Industry Employee Turnover Survey. Year after year, they've been producing this survey, except in 2020, but year after year, they've done this study, and they've come with about the same calculated number, around $9,100 for every employee lost. Now, the sad part is those are direct costs. The indirect costs are what I was talking about before. The costs of lost productivity, of overloading other employees, reduced morale, managers focused on not the future of what they want to be accomplishing, enhancing patient care. They're just focused on survival and trying to fill the schedule. We see it over and over again, and that can be 150 times, 150% of someone's salary. So if you just looked at the direct cost, that smaller number, you lose one person in your organization, that's $9,100 lost. And on average, our industry has a 30% turnover rate. That means every year, that's almost a third of your organization is leaving. And really after 3 years, that's the entire organization.
Yeah. And in other conversations, we'll talk about, especially in our webinars, we talk about the effect of leadership on all of this. And, but for tonight, we really want to focus on this idea of recruitment. And one of the many emails we got, or one of the topics, I should say, on many of the emails is all about, well, we need to increase wages. We need to increase wages. Well, what do you think your access to that is? If you're losing $9,100 every time somebody does a turnover, then every time somebody leaves, imagine if instead of that, you could be putting that money into salaries or benefits or other things. And so that's why this is such an important topic. And, and then when you're thinking about, 1.5 times what a salary is, you're talking 30 to 50,000 in some cases. And the higher you go up the ladder, in terms of leaders, the higher that number of 150%.
Upwards of 400% for large, higher tier positions. So if you just do the quick math, the average organization of 50 people, and you take a third of that, that's 16 people times 9,100. There's $150,000 worth of lost direct costs and turnover. So we just wanted to give folks a little bit of context around the real costs of turnover.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was going to say today we're focusing on creating your membership map. And sometimes we'll say map and sometimes we'll say math. And that'll make sense in a minute. A membership map, which is going to be your assignment tonight, is really a example of backwards planning, which is a concept that we're going to go much more in detail about during our live training in February. Backwards planning, in my opinion, is the special sauce, if you will, of creating anything, of any project. Because what you're going to do in a backwards plan, basically, is imagine the future that you want has come true. So you see in this little graphic here, imagine future. You actually live like, oh my God, this future has come true. So in this case, we have, the exact amount of members we want. We have, retention, you imagine that and say, okay, what would that kind of experience be like? What would that future be like? And then standing in, it's already happened. It's already been accomplished. You start thinking backwards and say, what did we do during the course of this year or however the time frame is to make that happen? And the CR stands for current reality. So when you get clear about what the numbers are, like in terms of your imagined future, not just the numbers, because we don't want to reduce people to numbers, right? But the quality of recruits, the quality of your team, the quality of your organization,
the quality of your budget.
Exactly.
What is your ideal budget? Not the budget you're stuck with, but what's that ideal budget? What's the ideal equipment? Not the equipment you're stuck with. And I think all too often, Lisa, people go from the top to the bottom. I'm going to create a plan. Okay, I need to do step 1, 2, 3, and then they get to 100 and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so insurmountable. I can't do this. This is a brilliant idea. Start in that future at the top, work your way back, step your way back until you get to where you are now. And then you have this beautiful pathway that you've drawn out to bring that future to reality.
Yeah. The biggest problem with starting with today is that all you see are problems. Right? You can't imagine the future. And so it looks like a bunch of problems to solve. And
anyone else have problems?
That's the thing that really is a imagination killer. So this, some people think, oh, it's pie in the sky. No, it's actually how our brains work the most effectively. And we, again, talk about that a lot more in the 3-day live. So I don't want to go into that now, but just take our word for it. Doing this kind of backwards planning is a really effective way to get past the limiting beliefs you have and get your creativity cooking. If you want to go to the next slide.
And yes, anyone else have problems in the chat? Bruce says yes. 99.
We got a few, 99 of them. Okay. All
right.
So many people in EMS are not familiar with this. It's a marketing or sales funnel. A lot of people in EMS are not trained in sales. Why would you be? You're saving lives. And I just want to reiterate what we said at the beginning. Whether you're career or volunteer agency, these same concepts apply. They might have to have slightly different messaging, slightly different actions, but where you want to look from is how does this apply to your organization? Um, so this is a marketing and sales funnel. And
I'm happy to talk about this part, Lisa,
go
if you
ahead.
want to talk about this. So again, the top part we've labeled recruitment marketing. And I'm a huge fan of marketing. I'm a bit of a marketing nerd. Okay. So being able to combine the ideas of marketing and messaging and what we do to really to draw those parallels for folks, I think is so important. I've done this in organizations before. And we're going to call this a funnel, right? Because you have a lot of people that might come in the top of an organization. If anyone has been in here, they've got people that have been interested in their organization, right? But then they didn't want to move forward. They didn't want to put an application in. They didn't want to go through EMT training. And some people did want to go through. So you can see the larger amount of people or numbers is through the top. So these first three phases. So when we talk about awareness, they could be social media posts, right? You can back that with little advertising funds to amplify your message, to reach your ideal target audience, right? You can with a small amount of Facebook ad spend, you can really narrow down to your geographic area of where you'd want to recruit people from, as well as what their interests are, and you can really spread your message very rapidly. You don't have to get expensive billboards, right? You don't have to pay for TV spots. Other things like articles that you can put in the paper, editorials, press releases, news stories. You could do billboards. I've done a billboard campaign in the past. But again, strategy over a random post, right? If you're randomly posting into the internet without a strategy behind it like this, you're probably going to get some random results.
Can I just say one thing about this
Absolutely.
too? Is, and I've worked with a lot of sales teams in my career, and the studies show that anywhere from 7 to 9 touches, in other words, 7 to 9 times that a person sees something or has some kind of touch point with it before they'll take action.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that. And when I'm working with young salespeople or people, young entrepreneurs or people new to being an entrepreneur, what happens is they think, well, I called them or I put an ad out and nothing happened. It's like, yeah, that's one ad. It doesn't work. You got to have anywhere between 7 to 9 touches. And some people say it's higher now because of social media. But at any rate, it's not one and done. So you're looking at a way of sort of approaching this from many different angles and meeting people where they're at. A lot of people are on social media, so that's a great tool. If you want to reach younger people, you're not probably going to use the penny saver because they're not reading that, right? So just think in terms of who you want, what you're looking for, and then how to create a campaign around awareness.
Absolutely. And this could be an all year event where you're constantly recruiting people and raising awareness, but it can also be a set period of time. Some people want like a recruitment class. Again, you want to move folks from the awareness phase to, like you said, Lisa, those additional touch points. Might be lawn signs. It could be football game announcements. All these things. People, if they can, or they hear somebody talking about an event, or they ask their friend that's how many people in this room got into this industry because of a friend or family member that was in the industry? I'm just curious. You could just put a yes in there if you did, into the chat. Just curious, who got into this industry because of a friend or a family member? Because we say that when you're not recruiting, you're always recruiting, right? Word of mouth. A friend encouraged Rick. Absolutely. And then we want to move people down to the interest phase. And we say this is the lead generation on a website. So we're going to show you an example, a very simple mock-up of a lead generation, but it's more than likely how you got into this training tonight. Right? You saw an ad on Facebook. You saw an email go out, right? You clicked it and you went to a basic landing page or said, yes, I want to be in. This is what I want more information, or yes, just count me in, and you took action. Renee says yes. Williams County says no. Good. So Williams County, you heard from someone else that wasn't a friend or family member, or you saw it some other way. Bruce said yes. So a bunch of people did say yes. Let's see. Interest.
And I just want to say one other thing about the whole campaign is it's important to tell your story. It's important to learn about that. And we're going to talk about messaging tomorrow. But you got to remember, you are setting yourself apart from other folks, other industries. So what's the organization that you want people to become aware of, right? So we're going to talk a lot about that tomorrow. So don't get too far ahead of yourselves. Go ahead.
All right. And again, when we get into this recruiting part, that's more of your onboarding, right? Your application down to selection and hiring. We're going to get into that part soon. But I wanted to show you a basic landing page. And this is a very simple website or a simple landing page. The messaging we're going to go over, but become an EMT, free training provided. Now, you could be, some organizations are going to be recruiting for EMTs. Other organizations are going to be recruiting for already trained people. The method is the same. The messaging is just slightly different. This messaging in particular was a campaign. It was join a winning team, right? Nobody wants to be part of a sinking ship, right? So join a winning team, name, phone number, email, submit. And the power behind this, we'll talk about later, is the structure and the follow-up that's in place. Because when people submit this form and within an hour get a follow-up or a phone call and say, oh, I'm with XYZ organization, I heard you were interested in becoming an EMT, they'll be like, wow, they're serious, right? And they're going to meet your excitement with their excitement. And we'll talk about that on the day 3 on the half-life of enthusiasm.
Absolutely. And when you're an EMT or you're a paramedic and they want to be an EMT, you can meet them right where they're at, and over the phone, FaceTime, Zoom. There's all kinds of ways to meet very quickly and say, hey, let's hop on a call, or let's hop on and they have an EMT calling them. They have a paramedic calling them. That's like a big deal. So I think that's a really important part of the fast follow-up.
In this in particular, this statistic was a few years ago, over $100 and maybe $20, $150 in ad spend to a very targeted demographic geographic area, generated 26 leads of people interested, which led to 15 applicants and 12 new people enrolled in an EMT class.
That's huge.
The 2-minute video, very simple message, and people, they just want more information. So this may look pretty overwhelming and intense. It's the lower part of that formula. And I know math has changed over the years. We're going to change math a little bit more and say 5 does not equal 5. If you say in your organization that what do you need in your membership map? Do you need just 5 people? Normally people think, well, okay, then I just need 5 applicants. Well, this is why we do some of this backwards planning here in math to figure out, okay, do you need just 5 people finishing training, or do you need like 5 functional and contributing members? Because we all know that if 7 people start an EMT class and only have an 80% pass rate, you get 5 people finishing training. And what happens if your organization, only about a third of those people complete their onboarding process? Then you get 1 to 2 contributing members, which isn't a bad thing. It's just not what you planned for. Yeah, Rick's saying 100% true.
Yeah, and I think it's really just a misunderstanding of how this works. And this is a basic sales is, if you want 5, and what 5, like you said, you want 5 functional contributing members. Well, you got to back way up. This is the backwards planning piece. You got to back way up and say, okay, how many people do we need that are interested leads? Right? Whether you do a landing page or however else you gain access to interested people, right? And then how many of those are actually going to apply? And then that you're not going to interview necessarily everyone, right? So there's a process to this, and it's a really important thing that a lot of organizations step over. They just don't understand it, and it's not their fault, but it's it's a missing piece of the recruitment um, plan, is not starting with what is our actual goal. Are we all aligned with what the goal actually is? What do we really need? And then, given that, going backwards and saying, okay, how many people do we really need to be interested to do that?
And you can see in this example here, if you just work that math backwards and you work it up the chain, up the funnel, that it might be 45 people that say, yes, I'm interested. I want to become an EMT. And maybe out of those 45, again, it depends on your organization. I think only 15 submit an application, a third of those people. And, maybe if you match their enthusiasm, you've got structures in place to create, to shorten that time of follow-up, that half-life of enthusiasm, and you call them back or email them back within an hour, that rate might go up to 50% or 70%. So you could be a lot more effective in every kind of part of this puzzle here.
And you bring up a really important point. Is one of the other things that this kind of planning does, it lets you see where the gaps are. Where do we need to go to work to be more efficient? So if many people say we don't have enough people interested, well, then how do you maximize those that are interested, and how do you support them in ways that really get them to go from interested to application and beyond? And just a little plug here. In the last summit, we interviewed 2 recruitment officers from the Fairfax County in Virginia, and I just recently re-listened to it. And let me tell you something, they did an amazing job of closing these gaps during the pandemic, and even now with using virtual practices and now combining them with in-person practices. And they figured out like where they were losing people, and they just created this amazing process, and they're getting more applications than ever because they got better at seeing where were they missing. I can't think of the right word. Like where were they missing the boat is what I want to say, but that's not.
This is process improvement, right? This is continuous improvement, and by mapping out each step in the plan, you can really get I'm a much more visual person. I can get a better idea of where we might be losing people, where are people falling through the cracks, and we can make small tweaks. And they say, right, small hinges swing big doors here. So in our last 2 minutes, right, we want to talk about the assignment. We want you to come up with your goal. What's that future vision of your organization, right? How many people are you going to be bringing more people on? Are you going to be maintaining the status quo? Are you filling spots? So how many functional contributing members are you going to plan on this week?
Yeah. So it's it's the beginning of your membership plan. So we're going to ask you to do 2 things. One is to come up with that number, as Robbie said, but we also want you to post in the group, the whichever you're on Facebook, or if you're in our network. I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. What's your number? And we want to hear one thing that you learned tonight. And that's going to be something we're going to ask you to do each week, because we want to hear from you so we can improve our process too. What are you learning? And so we can see like what are the most important points that we're hitting here. So that is your assignment should you choose to accept it. Boy, that 30 minutes went fast.
That went really fast. And anybody that's watched us before, Lisa and I can talk about a lot of stuff, right? We've got a lot of things we could talk about, and we really tried to distill this down, break it down, simplify some of these steps into 5 milestones over the next 5 days to guide you along in the process. And by the end of the week, really create a plan and results. And that's what we're committed to. And being here to support you. I mean, that's what we live for.
Yeah. And how cool is it going to be to start your year off in January with a plan to be working on and know that it's an effective one. So
was this helpful, folks in the chat? I mean, we've got folks here live with us. Hopefully it was helpful. We'd love to hear any comments you have right now. If you have anything you'd like to share, what your takeaway was, we appreciate that. And otherwise, Lisa, we're gonna end day 1, and really it's just the beginning of day 1. And this recording will be available for folks.
And do we need to put the link, sorry, to the Facebook or the our leadership network?
Folks watching this are already going to be watching from the Facebook group. So post right up
Okay.
in our pop-up Facebook recruitment Facebook group and our EMS Leadership Network group. I see we've got folks joining in from that, and they can post in that group. Any questions, you can reach out to us by email. We've certainly sent you enough emails, I'm sure. support@emsleadershipacademy.com. Great to see some folks saying they had takeaways.
Awesome. That's great. Well, we're happy to see you. Good, precise info. Thank you. And that was not easy for us. We've been whittling this down and trimming it down, and we are really looking forward to the 3-day event, because then we can really talk and share everything we want to share. But anyway, so anything else for tonight? I'm looking forward to seeing what people come up with, and we'll see you tomorrow, where we're going to be talking. We're going to be talking about messaging and why messaging matters.
All right, folks, you have a great night.
Bye, everybody.